Shadows in the Silence. After 20 years of serving my country, I thought I'd seen it all, but nothing prepared me for the job offer that came my way. I was sitting in a dingy diner, nursing a cup of stale coffee, when a man in a dark suit slid into the booth across from me. His eyes were cold, calculating, and his voice was low, almost a whisper. "We need someone with your experience," he said, sliding a file across the table. "This isn't your typical prison guard position. You'll be working at a facility that requires discretion." I opened the file, revealing a photograph of a sprawling complex shrouded in mist. The name at the top sent chills down my spine. Project Sentinel. The dossier hinted at the facility's purpose, holding non-human entities. My instincts screamed at me to walk away, but the promise of an excellent salary and the allure of a new challenge pulled me in. "Think about it," he said, his voice dripping with a mix of urgency and intrigue. "You'd be doing your country a service." The day I arrived at the prison, a sense of foreboding washed over me. The facility sat isolated in the mountains, surrounded by dense forests that seemed to swallow sound. As I drove through the heavy gates, I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. The walls were tall and imposing, painted a dull gray that matched the overcast sky. The guard station was small, equipped with monitors displaying grainy footage of the prison's interior. My partner, Simmons, a grizzled veteran, gave me a curt nod as I settled in. His eyes darted around, constantly scanning the shadows, and I could see the tension etched into his features. "Welcome to hell," he muttered, leaning back in his chair. "Just keep your head down and don't think too much." The first night was uneventful, but the silence gnawed at me. The air felt thick, charged with an unseen energy. Every creak of the building echoed, and the distant sounds of machinery felt haunting. I tried to focus on the monitors, but the flickering screens only amplified my anxiety. As the hours crept by, I began to hear faint whispers, soft, incoherent sounds that seemed to seep through the walls. I shook my head, dismissing it as fatigue, but the whispers persisted, growing louder, more insistent. "Are you hearing that?" I asked Simmons, my voice barely above a whisper. "Hearing what?" He shot me a look, his brow furrowed. "It's just the wind." But deep down, I knew something was off. Days turned into a blur of unease. I tried to shake off the feeling of dread, but it clung to me like a shadow. Then came the first incident. Alarms blared, slicing through the silence like a knife. I jumped from my seat, adrenaline surging as Simmons rushed to my side. "Subject 7 has escaped," he said, his voice tight with urgency. "We need to secure the area." Subject 7. The name sent a chill down my spine. I had heard whispers about it, a creature that defied explanation. We locked down the perimeter, but the sense of impending doom hung over us. We split into teams, searching the dark corridors, our flashlights cutting through the oppressive darkness. Each step felt like a descent into madness. The whispers grew louder, clawing at my sanity. I could feel eyes watching me from the shadows, but whenever I turned, there was nothing there. Simmons and I ventured into the maintenance tunnels where the air was damp and heavy. My heart raced as I scanned the darkness, the whispers now a cacophony in my mind. "This is insane," I muttered, trying to shake off the growing sense of dread. "It's just a creature," Simmons replied, but his voice wavered, betraying his fear. Hours passed, and we found nothing. We returned to the control room, exhausted and on edge. I reviewed the footage from earlier, my heart pounding as I scanned for any sign of Subject 7. Then, there it was, a flicker of movement, a dark shape darting through the shadows. I froze, replaying the clip. It was fast, too fast. I called Simmons over, but when he looked, the screen showed only the empty corridor. "You're seeing things," he said, his voice laced with disbelief. "No, I swear it was there," I insisted, but doubt crept in, gnawing at my resolve. The following days were a blur of dread and paranoia. The whispers grew louder, now clear enough to form words that sent shivers down my spine. They called my name, beckoning me into the dark corners of the prison. I tried to dismiss it, but the more I resisted, the stronger the pull became. One night, while on patrol, I felt a presence behind me. I turned sharply, my heart racing, but the corridor was empty. The air felt electric, charged with an unseen force. I could hear its breath, low and guttural, vibrating through the walls. "Is anyone there?" I called out, my voice trembling. Silence answered me. As the days turned into weeks, I became increasingly isolated. The other guards avoided me, their eyes filled with a mix of pity and fear. Simmons was my only ally, but even he seemed to be slipping into paranoia. We spent our nights in a heightened state of alert, waiting for something to happen. Then, one night, it did. The alarms blared once more, but this time they were accompanied by screams, sharp, piercing cries that echoed through the halls. I grabbed my flashlight, heart pounding as I raced toward the source of the noise. I burst into the common area, and what I saw made my blood run cold. A guard lay sprawled on the floor, his face twisted in terror. The room was in disarray, furniture overturned, and the air was thick with the stench of fear. In the corner, a dark shape moved, low to the ground, its eyes glinting like embers. I backed away slowly, my heart racing. The creature lunged, quick as a shadow, and I turned to run. I sprinted down the corridor, the sound of its breath hot on my heels. I could hear the whispers again, louder now, urging me to flee. "Get to the control room," Simmons shouted over the intercom. "Seal the doors!" I barreled through the halls, adrenaline pumping, until I reached the control room. I slammed the door shut, locking it behind me. My hands trembled as I fumbled with the controls, desperately trying to secure the facility. The creature clawed at the door, its growls echoing through the tiny room. I could feel its rage, a primal force that sent chills down my spine. I was trapped, with nowhere to run. As I huddled in the control room, I noticed a flickering light on one of the monitors. It was a feed from the maximum security wing. I turned it on, and my breath hitched in my throat. The creature was there, pacing like a caged animal, its eyes glowing in the dark. I quickly scanned the footage, heart racing. The creature was not just an aberration, it was a being of unimaginable power, a remnant of something ancient and terrifying. The whispers intensified, and I realized they were not just in my head. They were a part of the creature, a manifestation of its will. Desperation clawed at me as I formulated a plan. I couldn't let the creature roam free, it had to be contained. But how? I glanced at the emergency weapons cabinet, my heart pounding. I knew what I had to do. I steeled myself, grabbing a tranquilizer rifle and a handful of darts. With a deep breath, I opened the door, the creature's growls echoing like a death knell. I stepped into the darkness, flashlight in hand, ready to face the horror that awaited. The creature was waiting, poised in the shadows. I aimed the rifle, my hands shaking, and pulled the trigger. The dart flew through the air, striking the creature in the shoulder. It roared in rage, thrashing against the walls. I fired again, and this time it found its mark. The creature staggered, its glowing eyes dimming as the tranquilizer took effect. I felt a wave of relief wash over me, but it was short-lived. The creature collapsed, but the whispers did not fade. They filled my mind, a cacophony of voices that clawed at my sanity. I had contained the beast, but at what cost? The darkness in the prison had seeped into my soul, and I could feel its presence even now. Days passed, and the facility was locked down. They sent in a team to secure Subject 7, but I knew the truth. The creature was not the only thing to fear. The prison itself was a living entity, feeding off our fears, our despair. I was transferred to a different facility, but the whispers followed me, haunting my every step. I tried to move on, to forget, but the darkness lurked just beneath the surface, waiting for the moment to strike again. Months later, I found myself back in that diner, the same stale coffee in front of me. I thought I had escaped, but the shadows still clung to me. I glanced out the window, and for a moment, I swore I saw it. A dark shape lurking in the distance. I shook my head, trying to dispel the vision, but it was too late. The whispers returned, a haunting reminder of what I had witnessed. I realized that I would never be free from the shadows, never escape the horrors hidden behind those prison walls. As I left the diner, I glanced over my shoulder, my heart racing. The darkness was still there, waiting, watching. I knew I would always be looking over my shoulder, forever haunted by the shadows in the silence,